In this video, I'm going to demonstrate a variety of ways to mix brown, including how to mix it from primary colors. The easiest way to mix brown is to mix red with black. I have pyrrole red and carbon black. If you add just a little bit of black, it turns into a dark red, but as you add more, it turns brown. If you ever painted a picture of apples, you would notice that the shadow areas are brown. As you add more black, it turns to a chocolate color. You can also make brown by mixing pyrrole red with ultramarine blue. It makes a chocolate brown very similar to the one that you can make with the black and the red. You may think that red and blue would make it purple, but you really want to use quinacridone magenta with ultramarine blue to make a vibrant purple. I think the black makes it more, for one, it makes it darker, but it also turns like a very dark chocolate brown, whereas this has a slight, it might have like a slight purple tint to it, but it's definitely not a vibrant purple. Just for comparison's sake, this is quinacridone magenta, and I'll show you how much more vibrant it is. I mean, that's a much more vibrant purple. I mean, this is brown, this is purple. That's quite different. Brown is actually dark red or dark orange. So you can create brown by mixing orange with black. And the color that it creates is similar to like yellow ochre or yellow oxide. Cadmium orange is fairly opaque, so it will cover over previous areas that you painted. Depending how much black you add in here, it does sort of turn slightly greenish. I mean, that is kind of like a yellow ochre or yellow oxide color. So that's a much lighter brown, more orangey or warmer brown. Now you can also use ultramarine blue to make brown from orange in the same way that I did with the pyrrole red. You will notice if you add a lot of ultramarine like I'm doing here, it does turn greenish. But there's a point where you have just enough orange in there, it does make a similar yellow ochre color. If you want to mix brown from the traditional primary colors, you can use cadmium red, cadmium yellow medium, and ultramarine blue. So I already showed you how to make brown from the red and the blue, which makes a dark chocolate brown. That might be what you're looking for, but you could also lighten it up with the yellow. So there's a wide range of browns you can mix from primary colors. It just depends on how dark you want it or how light you want it. So here it is with the yellow. I'll add a little bit more, and then I'll add some red. And if you want a dark brown from this, you just leave out more of the yellow and mix the red and the blue together. Try and smooth that out a little bit. So here's a nice range of browns you can mix from the traditional red, yellow, and blue primary colors. Now, as an alternative to red, yellow, and blue, you can also use cyan, magenta, and yellow. And here I'm using phthalo blue, quinacridone magenta, and Hansa yellow medium. And you can mix a brown from these colors too. So if you want a dark brown, start by mixing purple with phthalo blue and quinacridone magenta, and then slowly introduce the Hansa yellow medium. Now this looks too green, so I'll add more magenta. And that makes a fairly dark brown. I mean, I want more magenta in here just to warm it up, maybe a little bit more yellow. And these colors are transparent, so you can get transparent browns with this. If you want a warmer brown, just add more yellow and magenta. These colors are very pure, but you can mix some very neutral earth colors from them. So if you want a real light brown, mix a lot of yellow with a little bit of magenta to make orange, and then slowly add phthalo blue in there. You can adjust it, add a little bit more magenta to warm it up a bit. I already made a video about how to mix black from these colors, so look for that in my playlist on color theory and color mixing. Just darkening this top part up a little bit. Another approach to mixing brown is to mix complementary colors. Now they don't have to be exactly opposite colors. In this first one, I'll mix cad red medium with light green permanent. Now I start mostly with the red, and you add small amounts of green until it starts to darken it. If you add too much green, it starts turning an unattractive brown color. There's a middle point where it makes a fairly decent brown. You can think of red and green as being complementary colors, but It's not exactly a complement. A mixing complement, when you mix them together, it turns a neutral gray. And when you're trying to mix a brown, is you're trying to mix a near neutral. So some of these other color combinations, like you think yellow and purple are opposites, that creates brown. But you can also use cadmium orange, which I'll show you next. So cadmium orange and dioxazine purple. It's a similar approach where it's mostly orange and then you use the purple to dull it down. This is more of a yellow brown, whereas the cadmium red made a brown that's more reddish. If you add more purple, it makes a darker brown. See if I can smooth that out a little bit. So other than orange, you can also use the yellow, as I mentioned before, and mix it with dioxazine purple. It's pretty similar to the cadmium orange mixed with the purple. You might be able to go a little darker with this one. Oops, my labels are wrong. That's this phthalo blue and cad red. Purple and yellow. Before I showed you how to mix brown from ultramarine blue and polar red, this is a combination of phthalo blue and cadmium red. It produces a similar result. And as you add more phthalo, it gets darker and darker. Again, that does not make purple. You would want to use quinacridone magenta with the phthalo blue. I could demonstrate that real quick. So here's quinacridone magenta. And then I'll just mix a little phthalo in there. Oops. And that makes a vibrant purple. And that's dioxazine right there. So if I wanted that to look a little bit closer, I could just add a little bit more magenta in there. So it's a pretty close approximation to dioxazine purple. Light brown. So the easiest way to make light brown is just to take a tube color like burnt sienna and mix it with white. Add a little bit of white to burnt sienna and it's almost a coffee color. But as you add more white, it starts to look like a flesh color. That could be useful if you're using a limited palette and you're painting portraits. This would make a suitable skin tone. So that's burnt sienna with white. Next up is burnt umber mixed with white, and that's a lot more neutral. So burnt umber plus white, it's a lot less red than the burnt sienna. So in addition to mixing like burnt sienna or burnt umber with white, you can use any of these other recipes, such as the cadmium orange with the ultramarine blue, to make light brown. You just mix it up like you normally would, and then add white to it. So depending on what colors you use, you're going to get different shades of brown. Light brown from primary colors. Mix the cad red medium with the ultramarine blue. Then add cad yellow medium to make an orangey warm brown. To lighten it, just add some white. Now you could change the proportions of the red to the yellow to make this more yellow or more orange or more red. If you add more blue, it will neutralize it. I could show you what that looks like. This is ultramarine blue. So you can see that's more neutral, light brown. You could add more white to it. Now you could also do that with a phthalo yellow and quinacridone magenta. I'll mix the magenta with the phthalo blue, then add Hansa yellow medium to make brown, and then add the titanium white. And the same principle applies. You can make it more reddish by adding more magenta and yellow, or you can add blue to dull it down and more white to make it lighter. Now the reason why brown isn't on the color wheel is because it only shows the pure colors. It doesn't show the tints, which are the colors mixed with white. And if it showed the colors mixed with black, which are the shades, brown would be next to the red or the orange. Thanks for watching. Please remember to subscribe and check out my playlist on color mixing and color theory.